Hey there, wedding enthusiasts. Welcome to Bridal Hype.
The podcast where we chat about everything under the wedding sun. No filter, all fun.
That's right. We're here to laugh, cringe, and celebrate all the wild and wonderful moments that comes with saying, I do.
From the latest trends that makes us go, really, to the epic fails that keeps us awake at night. We've got it all.
So whether you're tying the knot, planning the perfect day, or just love a good wedding story, you're in the right place.
Let's crank up the hype and celebrate the wonderful chaos of weddings together. Hey bridal besties, welcome back to Bridal Hype.
Today we're diving into a super relevant topic that's a common hurdle for so many couples and planners out there. Short setup times at wedding venues and all the stress, costs and chaos that can come with it.
If you ever thought, how am I going to transform this space in just a few hours, or why does setting up so fast cost so much, then this episode's for you. So grab your coffee, tea, or maybe even a mimosa and let's get into it. Okay, Linka, before we start, what was your challenges this week?
Honestly, my challenge this week was to juggle two different companies at the same time.
Okay.
But not only that, I am currently moving from I'm moving from a flat into a house. So all the constraints that comes with that, on all the planning, you're in going inspections, your outgoing inspections, the cleaning, the arranging of the pickup truck and moving all my items, packing it in boxes, bubble wrap, tape. I'm so overwhelmed. So I would definitely very excited. But juggling the two businesses all at once, having to give your attention to both at the same time, and then also the move that is coming up has been very challenging for me.
Just to give you guys some insights on the two businesses you're referring to, obviously one being Bridal Hype at this stage. So Linka is doing all of the editing for us and it's becoming very exciting. She's sharing some bloopers and snippets and it's so funny.
We are laughing so much.
We can't wait for our podcast and popcorn day just to chat about everything and listen to everything. But the other business, obviously Miko as well. And then on that, you're also moving this weekend, so hats off to you for everything. I think my challenge this week was a bit the same. I also struggled with not just the admin portion of Infinite Concepts, but we had site visits yesterday, the day before, with clients from abroad that's here to look at their venues, which is very, very exciting, and it does take a lot of energy. And then to keep that energy to go home doing the admin and then trying to keep that hype for Bridal Hype. That was a bit tricky as well this week for me to manage, but I think
100%.
After this week and once we just full on editing and marketing wise, I think we'll be good and then we can focus on the weddings again.
Definitely. But Elisma, before we go on, you have an exciting announcement. Something very exciting is happening tonight and you need to tell the people.
Well, it's maybe not happening, but hopefully by the time that this episode's out, you guys will know.
Definitely.
But we are hopefully getting a new addition to the family tonight, a little fur baby.
Oh.
So if our current fur baby approves of the new fur baby, we might have an episode or two where there's a little puppy in the studio, but
I cannot wait.
We'll see. Linka is packing her bags and moving into my place.
Literally, I told her I'm the number one babysitter and that fur baby is coming with us to the studio. I am so excited.
We can't wait. Well, I'm very excited. I actually wanted to get him yesterday, but with today's shooting schedule and everything, it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
It's also not fair to him to be at home.
No, shame on the first day.
On the first day, exactly.
But Elisma, what would you say was your week's accomplishment or achievement?
To get the application forms done for the dog.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so.
No, I think this week was actually, the accomplishment was going to bed a little bit earlier and waking up earlier to get stuff done and just general energy to get it back there and making sure I delegate properly this week to my fellow interns that I have currently with me and making sure all the works get done. I did a few calls on Sunday, which I'm very happy about. And I got that admin out the way as well. So very, very exciting calls coming up with clients. It's just like fun bits now. A lot of the mundane admin portions of the things have been done. So that's my accomplishment.
Oh, that's great.
Yours?
Mine, I actually signed 2 new brides this week.
High five! Well
Very
done.
exciting.
Well done. Exciting time.
Very exciting. One for next year and one for 2026.
Wow.
So I can't wrap my head around being at 2026 planning already.
End of the year, beginning of the year, 2026?
March.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool.
Also a very popular month.
I know, I've seen that.
I can't
I think
believe
I've got 2 that's saying March is okay, but they're also looking at end of next year, so we'll see where they fall.
Yes.
So
yes.
we'll see. Yeah.
So yes, starting to plan 2026 weddings.
Well, it is
Very
the season
exciting.
for it.
I know, but let's get into today's episode.
Let's get into today. All right, guys. So you've set the stage. You've finally found the perfect venue. The ambiance is dreamy. The views are to die for, and it fits your style perfectly. But here comes the catch. The venue only gives you a few precious hours before the event to get everything set up.
For wedding planners, this can be the ultimate pressure cooker situation. Trying to make magic happen in a condensed time frame can turn what should be an exciting morning into a sprint against the clock. And it's not just about throwing down some tablecloths and centerpieces. It's transforming an empty space into a personalized, beautiful celebration spot in record time. So, what do you do? How do you prep? And why can these short setup times get pricey?
So, Lenka, have you had any of these situations?
Oh, unfortunately, I have recently done a wedding in Franschhoek, but already we had the ceremony, the pre-drinks, and the reception. 3 different locations.
Goodness me.
Yes, so the other catch at this reception spot was that this was also an operating restaurant.
Okay.
And a high-end operating restaurant. So which means they did inform us ahead of time that they were going to take at I think 3:30 they would take their last slot of sit-down guests. But this restaurant is a fine dining restaurant.
Okay.
So it has 9 courses. So which
Goodness.
obviously yes, for sure. It takes time.
When are we going?
I mean, we should book it right away. It takes time. And being a high-end restaurant, you have to have a certain understanding towards it, because you can't necessarily just kick out the guests when you need to start setting up for the wedding. But which made it extremely difficult was, so we had the ceremony in the church in Franschhoek. Beautiful ceremony and setup, and this couple was just so lovely. Then we had the pre-drinks at the art gallery.
Oh, that was insane. I saw the videos. That was really beautiful.
Oh, thanks. I had to arrange it for them to walk through the art gallery. We had some live entertainment, and guests could roam around the art gallery with a glass of bubbles in hand. But obviously the ceremony ended at 4 o'clock. But the guests could only enter reception at 6 o'clock, which made my setup time from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. I had an hour.
Wow.
I had an hour to do setup of an entire restaurant. And like we just mentioned, it's not just plopping down decor items and expecting it to bring this whole look together. Exactly. It's a whole process that needs to take place. And by this stage, it was 5:15. And the guests were still seated at their tables, have not paid their bills yet. So we got antsy because we need to enter the space, we need to start. The florists need to run in and do a bridal backdrop behind the bridal table, which
stressful.
all those elements take time to set up. And it's not just, luckily the manager on site was an absolute champion, and I told him, I'm so sorry, can I use this separate foyer part of the restaurant to just bring in all of our items and place it down, so that when the last guests leave, then we can just run in and start to do
Did
the
they
setup.
at least give you some assistance in terms of staffing?
Oh, they did. Their waiters were incredible.
Okay,
they were so supportive, so helpful, so friendly, and that also contributes to a positive experience. We were rushed, and we were running around, and it was the one supplier coming in, the other supplier helping with other elements that weren't part of their scope, but just assisting, and everyone coming together in that rushed 45 minutes.
It's nice if your suppliers and your team comes together on something like that and really helps, and everyone helps. There's no like fighting or shouting and stuff like that. Everyone's just, okay, let's get it done. Let's make sure it's perfect.
We have the same goal in mind. Let's go for it.
Yes, making sure that client's day is spectacular, and obviously assisting you at the end of the day. So, that's amazing.
Yeah, and you?
Well, yes, no, yes. Anyway, we deal with it as we go.
We do.
So obviously being now season time, I've seen it more, and I really hope that it's something that will surely but soon fade out, is when we get into peak season or peak of season, which we're moving into now, November, December. January is a little bit quiet, but Feb and March is very hectic again, and then we start dying down towards end of April. But venues get back-to-back bookings, and I understand why they take it on, and then that's when you have, okay, you need to be out of the venue by 9 because the next person can come in at 12, and then you only have that setup time from 12 to 4 before the ceremony starts. Or for instance, like again, majority of the restaurant venues or venues that do have fine dining restaurant establishments on site only gives you the opportunity. You can start 4 a.m. because they've got night managers. You can start with your setup, but the amount of money you pay for a 4 a.m. start, or the risk you take of someone not pitching at 4 a.m. and then everything's delayed, is so high. So that costly effect of it is always like, it's always daunting to tell a client, okay, this is your overtime charge.
Definitely.
Or a lot of venues are now going around saying you need to be out by Sunday because they want to just clean on Monday, and they have the next person coming in Tuesday, or they have someone coming in on Monday already for Monday wedding, so, or Sunday even coming in, and that cost implication is so much for me, and I see it so much during the end of season or the peak of season, and then it slowly fizzles out because the bookings aren't back to back. So really hope it's something venues would consider in the future, is not doing back to backs, and at least give the venue a day's space to breathe. But that will also just help with planning, whether that's a Sunday or Monday that we have the breathe space, just allow that to happen, because we've worked till 2 a.m. at weddings, and you back the next morning. You get home at 3:30, go to bed, be back 6, 7, 8 a.m. to do breakdown. So a bit of tricky. I haven't had nightmare stories like you had with an hour setup. I think my least amount of hours that I had was like 4 or 5 at a restaurant,
which is still stressful.
It is very stressful. It depends. I think there's a lot of things we'll tackle in this episode about how to make sure that you geared for it the most appropriate way.
Yes, definitely.
Cool. So right, here's a scoop on the cost implications of a short setup window. Time is money, and when there's less time, we often need more hands on deck. Think about it. If you're a planner or a venue has 2 hours to get weddings and things ready, instead of the leisure of 5 to 6 or maybe even 10 hours, we need to bring an extra team member to make all of that happen. And that unfortunately comes in an extra cost, and it can add up.
This extra staffing isn't just about setup either. Florists, decorators, lighting techs, etc., they all might need to pay their teams more for the rush. And planners may have to book additional specialized crew members who are skilled at fast, efficient setups. So while short setup times can save on some venue costs, they can sometimes increase the labor expenses to pull off the same vision.
Another big cost factor is having to source quick setup decor or props. For instance, instead of a full floral arch that takes time and a while to build, you might opt for a pre-prepped backdrop or pre-arranged centerpieces that can just be placed on the go. These tend to come at high and premium prices, so the total price tag can sneak up on you.
Definitely. And the first story that pops up into my head, Elisma, is imagine we had a time constraint with regards to setup at the event we did in Feb. Unfortunately, we can't disclose any more information. But imagine, do you remember the time that it took for the decor company to build those backdrops in the parking lot, for instance?
Oh goodness, yeah. I was very stressed about that.
Imagine we had a time constraint, and that had to happen or take place on the event day itself. We would have never been able to finish in time. Luckily, we had the Friday prior.
We had like 3 days that we can for build up, which was great. But that's definitely, like, I haven't thought of that. They were actually busy still on the day with that. That was the last thing, that was the morning, because it is the parking lot where people that's staying at this place needed to park, and we needed to cover that up to make it look aesthetically pleasing.
How many backdrops did we have? We used how many? It was a lot.
4, I think it's 12 to 17, because we even made a beautiful setup for the bathrooms. We had to hire in bathrooms because the inside bathrooms were just too little, and we didn't want too many people going in and out the houses that are there. So we did this beautiful backdrop setup for the bathroom where people can just snake in and snake out, so it just looks aesthetically pleasing, because that's also our arrival point where the shuttles dropped off the guests, and there was hostesses greeting them, etc. So Yo, imagine that. I would have freaked out because guests would have been arriving and they're still covering it in cloths and making sure everything looks nice.
And remember, they have to drill these panels together with screws and etc. etc. It's not
safety
just,
as well as,
exactly.
as aesthetics.
It's not just placing it there and it's done. It's aligning it, drilling it together, and the pebble, the ground, yes, securing it with sandbags. But the ground that it was placed on are these loose pebbles and stones, so it's uneven ground and an uneven surface, which makes it more tricky. But also, like Elizabeth said, that's the place where the shuttles drop the guests off. So that's your initial impression and your face first that you will see when you arrive at this.
And that was the last thing we could do. We couldn't do that first. We had to do that at the end.
Exactly.
So okay, well, I didn't even think about that. That event went well. So in my mind, I just had a great time. I was very tired, but I had a great time. Wow. Okay. It's a good one to think about. Thanks, Linka.
Of course. So, what's the game plan here? If we're working with a short setup time and don't want to break the bank, what do we do? Firstly, we would advise you to prioritize like a pro. Instead of trying to do everything, focus on the must-haves, the things that will make the biggest visual impact in the space. A gorgeous ceremony backdrop, key statement pieces, or even just beautiful table settings can go a long way. Sometimes less is truly more, especially when the time is tight.
Perfect. Yes, Linka. And then go modular. Think about modular or pre-assembled decor elements that you can move easily. For example, using pre-arranged floral pieces or self-standing arches that don't necessarily need a ton of setup. Ask your florist or decorator about options that are quick and easy to assemble and still stunning.
Create a detailed setup plan, for instance, your final program. A timeline is key, but a detailed setup floor plan is even better. Outline where everything goes and label it. Think of it as a wedding setup blueprint so everyone knows exactly what to do. And share it with your vendors. The more organized you are, the smoother things will go.
Well, this is an important one. Final program. It's your Bible.
That is my Bible, and that document is currently 38 pages long. Sorry to all my vendors who needs to read through that.
Yeah, well, I've seen yours. It's quite intensive. I do pride myself in mine also having a lot of information.
And color-coded. And all the beautiful sketches.
Yes, you do have a lot of like reference images. I think that's something I don't necessarily include in everything.
Yeah.
Majority of my florists don't look at the program. They just see what time do I need to be there, what time do I need to be out.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And we do ask our service providers to please stick to those times. I mean, we are lenient. We are lenient if a certain situation pops up where it's physically impossible to arrive at that time, and like I say, we are a bit more flexible in that regard, but please try and stick to that because we've arranged for it for a certain reason. But not only that,
I always give them extra time. Like
yes.
I tell them
we know by now.
I tell them smaller ranges because I know they're going to take a bit
exactly
more.
But the thing with the reference images are, I've found it's way more helpful for my setup staff and the
assistants and help on site. If you're running onto one section at the ceremony and they're inside the reception, they can see what needs to happen and double check it.
Exactly, what item needs to be placed in which area, and I literally hand them the piece of paper on the program. I tell them these are all the elements that need to be set up there. They go and hunt for them on the premises and then they place it perfectly, and I'm happy.
Perfect. So then also assign clear roles. So that filters through from what Linka has just said. You have a wedding planner. We've got this down to science. But if you do it DIYing it or doing it yourself, try to enlist at least a friend or two who can help, and give each person a specific job. You don't want people in charge of each other, so you want them to be able to work independently and efficiently without stepping on each other's toes. This obviously, wedding planners have that. Will give you your job and your role and responsibility to do on the day. That's also where setup staff comes in play. So we'll show them how a table needs to be set up. They'll start with the setup stuff while we may be looking at how the chandeliers are being put up and how high they need to go, etc.
Definitely. So considering hiring an on-the-day coordinator or setup specialist. Short setup times are exactly why coordinators exist. They're absolute rock stars at organizing quick setups, coordinating vendors, and getting everyone working like a well-oiled machine. They are worth every penny if you have limited time.
So Linka, have you had any stories or experiences that you can tell where you've had short setup times and your vendors just didn't help?
The day prior to the wedding, on the Friday, we couldn't place the florals inside of the venue because it was too hot, so the flowers would wilt. So unfortunately we had to keep it in a separate kitchen area. But on that wedding, the morning of the Saturday, I had a very helpful team that took care of the setup, and we were busy doing the ceremony setup and running around like crazy people. And then unfortunately, by the time the caterers have arrived on site, they arrived earlier to prep the braai and all the other elements that they had to have on the day. So they did not communicate to me that they would arrive earlier, but then all the florals for 140 packs people, or 140 packs wedding, was still in their kitchen space. And unfortunately all my staff were scattered all over the premises, each of them literally busy doing something that was needed. So
Linka was busy carrying all the flowers out of the kitchen.
I ran and keep in mind, these florals were bud vases.
Oh, so it's like
so they are
tiny little things you need to carry on a tray.
Single stem flowers, running around trying to get it from the kitchen to the venue, which was quite a far distance from each other, and the staff was nowhere to be seen. Like I've mentioned, they were busy with something else, so it was just chaotic in that moment. And unfortunately ceremony was creeping closer, so we just struggled to get all the florals onto the tables. And then, mind you, style it. You can't just place it down.
You have to
You need to take into consideration the height and the candles on the table and the glassware already existing.
If you had a staff member that was carrying it over, placing it on the dance floor maybe, and you put it down, then the styling and the placing could happen, but you didn't have that at that stage.
No.
Goodness.
Yeah,
okay.
very
I had
stressful.
one. You were actually there. It wasn't a fun one to do. It was quite chaotic. Again, we started at 4 a.m. setup. Majority of the staff arrived between 4 and 6 a.m. and the suppliers, and we started with setup. There was a dance that needs to go down, disco balls. We had a full installation over the dance floor, and then the floral need to go into the venue side of things, and we also had ceremony setup. And it was November, so it was quite hot, so again ceremony couldn't go out too early. There was just a lot happening and a lot of people and a lot of personalities on site. And I think that was don't laugh at this, you were there, you were one of the personalities.
I'm laughing at all the drama from that day.
And it's not drama with the client, not drama with like us or me as a planner setting it up, whatever. It's drama because of this one specific vendor just didn't help. They stood there, hands on their hip, being like, when you're putting the tablecloth down, and the venue was busy with their staff members that they were going to give us for setup, was busy getting all the other areas set up and clean and ready for the client. It was just, everything just was very intense. And I had to walk out of the venue at one stage. I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, we'll get the table sorted for you. Can you just chill?
But a few people were shouting at each other.
It just wasn't a fun time. The one supplier got impatient, and it was really, really difficult for us to just say, please just bear with us. We're unfortunately a little bit short of hands due to X, Y, and Z reasons. But yeah, we struggled a lot with that one specifically.
We did. And for planners getting to a venue, being unstaffed, that's such a tricky situation, because we physically only have two hands, and we need to keep the couple happy, we need to keep all the vendors happy, and we need to keep the venue happy. We have so much pressure weighing on us. Being understaffed is the least of your,
the worst of your problem,
that
but the last thing you think of if you have decencies or you're planning in place that you would have staff.
Because you are already running around like a crazy person, and now you don't have the support and the hands and the help on deck that you need.
Exactly. So at least there was, like with instance you and another person that could help me just get the stuff sorted and put the tables and stuff down, where the staff, when they did arrive later, they can come and just do the setting. So tablecloths were down, everything was down for the florist to put her stuff down, and then for everyone to kind of get sorted and get out of there.
Alright, I hope today's episode has given you a mix of practical advice and maybe a little relief too.
Short setup times might feel like a curveball, but with the right approach and some amazing support, they don't have to be a deal breaker.
Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep the bridal hype high, the stress low, and remember, your day will be beautiful no matter the timeline.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Bridal Hype.
If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and leave a review. Join us on social media to share your thoughts and connect with our hype community.
Be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time,
Keep the hype alive!